I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're going to discuss the two Americans at AC Milan, Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musah, and how their seasons are going so far. To help me do that, I've invited Alessandro Bai to join the show. Alessandro is an Italian-Brazilian freelance journalist. He's the Milan correspondent for Total Italian Football, and he previously wrote for The Blizzard and La Gazzetta dello Sport. Alessandro, welcome back to the show.
Hello, Frank, and hello, everyone. Very glad to be here. A pleasure.
Yeah, we were just talking before we hit record that every time we talk, so much changes with regards to Milan. It's been a real up and down season, and I want to start with talking about Pulisic. You know, something I hear a lot about in the media over here, over and over again, is I hear that Pulisic has been Milan's best player this season. And I know sometimes we can be a little biased, because we're also fans of him. I want to hear from you. Do you think he's been their best player this season, and why or why not?
Well, I think that it's an appropriate label, probably, for Pulisic, especially for the way he started the season. Because, as you said, Rollercoaster, I think, is the is the rightest word to describe Milan this season. And, well, Pulisic has also been involved in this, rollercoaster season, but I think his displays have remained consistent. Of course, he has probably slowed down a bit in terms of goals and assists because, his start was impressive with 5 goals in the first, 7-8 matches. So he's not keeping that pace, but I think the only player in contention with him to be described as the best player of the season is Tijani Reinders, who has been impressive in midfield. But to be fair, probably what has changed the most is that Pulisic is not the main star anymore. He was shining all the time because basically Rafa Leao was really disappointing at the beginning of the season, and so all the spotlight were for Pulisic. Basically, he was the decisive man for Milan in every match, and they relied a lot on him. Now everyone knows that the winter transfer window has brought a lot of interesting names to Milan, like Joao Felix from Chelsea and Santiago Jimenez. But at the same time, I feel like Pulisic is always one of the main dangers when he's on the pitch. He has gone through a couple of minor injuries, who has also slowed him a bit. But I know, every time he's there, you can't help but notice him, even in the Champions League when he didn't score in the last match, which was a disappointment against Feyenoord. But, he created the chance that resulted in Jimenez openers. So, I would say that basing ourselves on his displays throughout this beat of the season, is to be considered the best player alongside the Reinders.
Yeah, just to compare those two's numbers, in my notes in front of me, I have that in all competitions for Milan this season, Pulisic has 12 goals, 7 assists, so 19 goal contributions. Reinders has 12 goals, 3 assists in all competitions, so 15 goal contributions. There's not much separating those two in terms of numbers. And like you said, Pulisic has maybe slowed down a little bit since the beginning of the year because he was on fire. It doesn't seem like he's done as much lately. And I guess we could discuss why, he has slowed down. One of the possibilities is, the coaching change. And I'll save that for a little bit because regarding the coaching change, I want to ask you about one other thing that happened in the news fairly recently was that, there was this report that came out that Pulisic and Sergio Conceição had an argument, and supposedly Pulisic said he was going to leave next season unless the coach did, and the next day Milan put out a statement on behalf of Pulisic saying none of it was true. The coach said it wasn't true. I mean, what'd you make of all of that, and did you think there was much truth to it?
Well, it's hard to say whether it was true or not, but what we can say is that Conceição has arrived in late December, and his style immediately looked totally different from Fonseca's. I mean, Fonseca was a kind of, soft coach that trying to bring changes in how they play, but he was always, kind of gentle, also in front of the cameras, which I think reflected more or less his style with players. And well, Conceição is totally different. One of the first things he said is that he didn't come to Milan to make friends, and he was insisting that basically everyone had to give more because he felt the quality was there, but the problem was that the players were not putting enough commitment, into the games. And to be fair, his surgeon style, he said not to have a lot of admirers in the locker room. I mean, he had a public clash with former captain Davide Calabria, who was dispatched to Bologna in January. I mean, they had a crazy confrontation in the middle of the pitch at the end of the Parma game. So I think this says a lot about how Conceição tends to handle things. And what I was telling you, that, I mean, he basically said straight to the players that they were not playing well enough. I think that a player like Pulisic may have made the case. I mean, well, probably this applies to them because I'm clearly the best player. But I'm not sure they really had a clash. What is sure is that even the way Milan handled the whole thing, I mean, with a public statement from the club, was just, it looked like a way, to dismiss rumors and speculation at a delicate time. But what statistics are telling us is that probably, Pulisic has slowed down a bit also as a result of a coaching change, because he liked a lot he was one of the few players to feel at ease with Fonseca style because they were very offensive. And I mean, Pulisic always showed a decent work rate, I think. But with Conceição, of course, probably that part is getting more significant, so he's required also to track back and do a lot of running, while he was probably a bit freer in the past to make the difference up front. So I don't think, to be fair, that Pulisic will be leaving at the end of the season. As things stand, I'd say it's likelier that Conceição walks. Yeah, because, I mean, he's really under scrutiny now after the Champions League elimination and the recent defeat in Serie A against Torino, because basically the club gave him all the means in the winter transfer window to, change things, turn things around, and chase the fourth spot, which is now I think 8 points away, even though they have a game to spare that will be played on Wednesday against Bologna. But I think that Milan have few certainties in this moment, but one of it is certainly in Christian Pulisic. I mean, I can't see them selling him at the end of the season. He's been central since his arrival, and he's been providing goals and assists regardless of what happened on the pitch. So I think his status will remain crucial in the squad.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did seem like I always thought, Pioli really valued Pulisic, and thought highly of him. But then when Fonseca came, he seemed to take it up to a whole other level. I mean, he seemed to absolutely love Pulisic as like a playmaker, and he was playing him in that number 10 role a lot of times. And so I do wonder if Conceição thinks as highly of him. Like, is there any reason to believe Conceição thinks less highly of him? Or is it just maybe that, you have like João Felix coming in now who's playing that number 10 and Pulisic's on the right. I mean, does he just think of Felix as a better playmaker? I mean, what do you think is the dynamic there?
Well, the fact is that when I think two such important signings arrive, like Jimenez and João Felix, also João Felix was a player that was specifically required by Conceição. So probably he already knew him very well and wanted him at the club. But the point is that when you get two important signings like that, you are kind of forced, to make things click. So I think is now testing various setups, which also include probably keeping Pulisic sometimes on the pitch or not being, the fact is that I think that Fonseca realized that his best way to get results was to put his best players in the best possible conditions. And I mean, he realized that Pulisic has been in great form since the start of the season. So it really made sense for him to make him central in the team. With Conceição, I think things could be slightly different because he's feeling the pressure now to make things work. And I mean, he's going through some complicated weeks. In my opinion, if Pulisic used to work in the past, there is no reason, to question his status. But when you have this pressure to get results, I think that you tend to try a bit of everything, and which is why he's now trying to, make Felix play as a trequartista behind the striker, and so that also implies sometimes not to play Pulisic on the right because it would take off a lot of balance from the team. So that's the reason why he's also testing Musah in that position. So it's like doing experiments now. And probably this has also affected Pulisic's season at the moment. But I think that I would be surprised if in the long run, he ended up on the bench on several occasions, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that experimentation unfolds, the rest of the season, with that, with those, I guess, the front three like positions. Let's talk about Yunus Musah a little bit because, he's now a player. I mentioned how it seemed the different coaches thought about Pulisic, but I would say Musah, with Pioli and Fonseca, he was kind of in and out of the lineup, moved around a lot. But since Conceição arrived, he's started almost every match. I mean, he seems to have Conceição seems to really believe in him. What do you think is it that he values so much about Yunus Musah?
Well, that's crazy because I think that also at the beginning of the season we said that basically Musah was going through an opposite situation compared to Pulisic, but now the coaching change that may seem a paradox considering we were talking about the best player of the team, but the coaching change seems to have benefited Musah probably. I mean, he's on the rise now. He was mainly a substitute with Pioli and Fonseca, and now I think he has started, I don't know if everyone, but certainly the most of the Serie A games under Conceição. And I think this is also highly telling of what we were talking about Conceição's style, because I mean, Fonseca was considered a more offensive coach, more interested in producing opportunities. And Conceição really rates the balance of the team. It's a very important aspect, and it's always been like that since he was at Porto. And is trying to replicate the same football style here at Milan. So, yeah, of course, he wants the offensive players to be there and to create danger to the opponents, but he's also very focused on bringing, balance, bringing all players to attack and defend together. And Yunus Musah is on the rise, I think, for this reason. I guess that his flexibility is what Conceição values the most, because as we've been saying, he was able to play at the right wing, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that he already did it under Fonseca at Real Madrid. Okay, he had the same idea of playing Musah as a right wing to give a bit of balance, because we all know that Milan tend to rely a lot on the left flank with Theo Hernandez and Leao. And so that was a way to compensate for that offensive side of the team. And but yeah, Musah, to be fair, he's behaving brilliantly under Conceição, because he provides everything that the coach wants. Run. He is not required to build the game so much. This is taken off a great responsibility, and this allows him to focus on the skills that he probably has more developed, I would say, because he has a tireless run. He can make challenges, and is an important element now for Milan, and he's been. Conceição has been fielding him in different position, in a two-man midfielder on the wing, as we said, but also in a three-man midfielder. Every time that Fofana and Reinders, for example, are not there, he's also the main substitute. So that's the reason why he's getting more playing time, and I think it will be like that until the end of the season, to be fair.
Yeah, you talk about this moving him around quite a bit, and he was playing out on the right wing quite a bit. It seems to me more that he is starting to play more in the midfield as one of the maybe two holding midfielders. Are you seeing that trend as well, or do you still think it's just kind of mix and match and put him all over the place? Do you think he's settling more into more of a midfield role under Conceição?
I think this is Conceição's ultimate goal, I would say. I think that Conceição aims to use a more offensive player than Musah on the wing, because, I think it makes more sense considering the players that he has at disposal. Imagine having Chukwueze, having Pulisic, also João Felix if he wants to play as an offensive winger, and using a central midfielder. So it's a kind of process now. He has started using Musah, as I said, on the right wing to give balance, but he sees more in midfield, I would say. But he's still in the process of deciding whether to play with a two-man or three-man midfield. So this could also affect how Musah is fielded on the pitch. But if I have to think on medium long term, I would say that Musah is likely to establishing himself mainly as a midfielder, and sometimes he knows that he can also have the chance to field him on some occasions on the right wing, but mainly I think that he's considered a good midfield option.
Okay. So we've referenced this several times is that Milan's up and down season, and Conceição being under pressure because things aren't going, so well. And that's where I want to go next is trying to understand what's going wrong at Milan this season. So they got knocked out of the first round of the the knockout round of the Champions League, and it went from very fast. It went from looking like they were going to get one of the top 8 seeds and a bye to the round of 16, but now all of a sudden, a few weeks later, they're out of the whole thing. They are currently 7th in the table, 6 points behind Lazio in 5th, 8 points behind Juve in 4th, with a game in hand, like you mentioned. 4th gets them into the Champions League for sure. 5th might, depending on how which league gets awarded the extra, Champions League spot, this year. So they're about, I think, 70% of the way through the season. So there's still a lot of games left. I mean, can you just start by talking about what you think has gone wrong for Milan this season? And then I want to get to eventually, can they turn it around and make it into the top 4?
Well, just considering Conceição's stint, I mean, it's been a roller coaster stint inside the roller coaster season, because he basically arrived and won the Italian Super Cup straight away, and Milan's environment is known for getting a lot of enthusiasm when the team start to be consistent. So, I mean, the impression at the beginning of Conceição's tenure was that if he was really the one able to turn things around, because he brought a different approach. He was stricter, as I said, and the players seem. I mean, the players back then seemed to need something similar. After the players' friends like Fonseca was, okay, they needed someone like Conceição probably. At the same time, he couldn't, keep up with the good results he had at the beginning, and basically he's facing very similar problems as Fonseca's. He has accused the players of the attitude. He hasn't been able to be consistent even within the same game. Milan started very very bad, and then they reacted brilliantly. But now we have a sample that we can compare, and there were reports suggested highlighting that Fonseca's record in the last 15 games at the helm was better than Conceição's first 15 games, which, in my opinion, clearly highlights that the problem is not lying on the bench, lies in the club. Because, I mean, there has been a lot of confusion in the last couple of years for Milan, after winning the title. There was the takeover with the new owners, and I think they struggled to realize what the team needed at that moment. I mean, not keeping Maldini is a decision that they are regretting, probably, because he was the perfect glue between the club and the team. Because, he has a great reputation. Players abroad look at Maldini and are willing to join Milan for that reason too. And I don't think it was a smart move to send him away. And this also led to a lot of protests from the fans, which has probably made the environment even more difficult for the new coaches to come, and to have the right time they would need to make changes and to get results. So I think that basically both Conceição and Fonseca did good and bad things, but the problem is that they arrived already in a very delicate system that every time you go at San Siro to watch Milan in the last couple of months, I would say, you just keep hearing Cardinale, you have to sell. Cardinale, you have to sell. Fans are just focused on this now because, they don't like the way the club is being run. And I think that if you don't have a strong figure in the board that is able, to shield the players, I think this role is perfectly summed up by Giuseppe Marotta at Inter. Inter are not going through an easier situation as for the club. They had huge debts. They sold. They were bought by an American fund, but Marotta, their director, is a really strong figure, who is able to isolate the players, from external rumors. And I think that the Rossoneri are really lacking this kind of position, of role, because Zlatan Ibrahimovic, it's not even clear. His role is not even clear. He is described as a Red Bird advisor, but. It's clear that he's getting familiar with a position that he's never worked in before. And this is not making things easier because he's not as reliable as he was on the pitch. And so, he's a bit stuttering when he talks to the press. You don't really know, how things are going behind the scenes, and fans, of course, don't like it. And this creates an environment which is generally hard to handle. It was for Fonseca, it is now for Conceição. So I think that Milan and consistency also highly depends on this reason. And this is also why considering we're already, as you said, 70% of the season, and Milan have an 8-point gap to the 4th place, and it is unlikely, as things stand, that Italy will get a 5th Champions League spot. So basically, considering they don't have just one team to leapfrog to get 4th, they have Fiorentina, Lazio, Juventus, and even Bologna are competing with them because they are level on points. I really struggle to see Milan, having that kind of consistency needed to turn things around in the remainder of the season, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like they have an uphill battle. Maybe the only thing they have going for them is that they don't have the Champions League now, so they can put 100% of their focus on their Serie A season. I know they're still in the Coppa Italia, right?
Yeah.
So they have that as well, but maybe without the Champions League, midweek games, maybe that gives them more time to focus. But I agree with you. I'm hopeful, but it seems you just don't know what's going to change all of a sudden. Are they all of a sudden going to start playing more consistently? What's going to change? And you just haven't seen any indication of that yet. But we'll see. I'm hoping for the best. Long season to go, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I guess that the main point that is making fans angry is that now we can say that Milan have the quality to perform better. I think that if we just consider the level of the squad, he would be up there with Juventus, with Inter and Napoli and Atalanta. I don't think that any other team in Italy can boast an attack with Pulisic, Leao, João Felix and Santiago Jimenez. That's really crazy. That's crazy. And even Ibrahimovic, in his last press conference, he said that basically this Milan squad is stronger than the one who won the Scudetto. And I think it makes sense. But the point is that, it was a different club, with Maldini cooperating with the coach. And even if Pioli started at a very difficult time, I remember Pioli losing 5-0 to Atalanta in one of his first games. But I mean, thanks to the support of the club, he managed to go all the way to the title, which was incredible. And now it's like a paradox because Milan have improved in terms of quality, but they don't have the same solidity, you know, as a club.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about all of that, Alessandro. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at journal_Bai, and also to your work at Total Italian Football. Thanks so much for coming back on the show today.
Thank you, Frank. It was a pleasure, as always, to be here. And yeah, hopefully let's chat before the end of the season, and we hope that Milan can somehow improve, maybe thanks to Pulisic, but it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.